distress, I cry to you, O Lord. Lord, hear my voice. Let your ears be attentive to the voice of my supplications. If you, O Lord, should mark iniquities, Lord, who could stand? But there is forgiveness with you, so that you may be revered. I wait for the Lord. My soul waits, and in his word I hope. My soul waits for the Lord more than those who watch for the morning. More than those who watch for the morning. O Israel, hope in the Lord, for with the Lord there is steadfast love, and with him is great power to redeem. It is he who will redeem Israel from all its iniquities. And now we're going to move over to Mark chapter 5, verses 21 through 43, and you will find that on page 48, the second page 48 in your red Bible. So your left-hand side's going to be full, and your right-hand side's going to have just a little bit on it. The Word of God says, "A girl restored to life and a woman healed." When Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a great crowd gathered around him, and he was by the sea. Then one of the leaders of the synagogue named Jairus came, and when he saw him, he fell at his feet and begged him repeatedly, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her, so that she may be made well and live." So he went with him. And a large crowd followed him and pressed in on him. Now there was a woman who had been suffering from hemorrhages for 12 years. She had endured much under many physicians and had spent all that she had. And she was no better, but rather grew worse. She had heard about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. For she said, "If I but touch his clothes, I will be made well." Immediately, her hemorrhage stopped, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. Immediately aware that the power had gone from him, Jesus turned about in the crowd and said, "Who touched my clothes?" And his disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing in on you. How can you say, 'Who touched me?'" He looked all around to see who had done it, but the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear, trembling, and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." While he was still speaking, some people came from the leader's house to say, "Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any farther?" But overhearing what they said, Jesus said to the leader of the synagogue, "Do not fear, only believe." He allowed no one to follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they came to the house of the leader of the synagogue, he saw a commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. When he entered, he said to them, "Why do you make a commotion and weep? The child is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him. Then he put them all outside, and he took the child's father and mother and those who were with him and went in, where the child was. He took her by the hand and said to her, "Talitha cum," which means, "Little girl, get up." And immediately the girl got up and began to walk about. She was 12 years of age. At this, they were overcome with amazement. He strictly ordered them that no one should know of this and told them to give her something to eat. Please forgive my sniffles. At the beginning of Mark, of this this chapter in the Bible, the very beginning of Mark. John the Baptist tells of Jesus coming. Then he baptizes them. Then Jesus goes out into the wilderness for 40 days and nights and is tempted by Satan. It's not the same one as Lent. It's a whole different one. A while after that, Jesus started calling the disciples, bringing them with him, and then he started ministering. He cast out demons, he performed healings, preached, performed more healings. He taught to the Pharisees and the disciples and healed some more. Jesus cast out more demons and told everyone that those who do God's will is his family. Jesus gave several illustrations about our faith journey in what we know as the parables. He spoke to so many people that he had to teach them from a boat. The crowd was so big on that shore that he couldn't even stand there and talk to them. He had to go back and get on a boat. When he was finished talking, he said to the disciples who were in the boat with him, "Let's go to the other side." They went on the other side, where there was a demon-possessed man waiting. And that demon-possessed man, Jesus called him out. No one could heal him. Jesus called him out, and the spirit within him, or the spirits, because there were many, actually said, "I am Legion." And they spoke Jesus' name. They knew Jesus, and they knew he had power, and they knew when he told them to get out, they had to go. And so they went into all these numerous pigs that were nearby, and the pigs ran into the lake and drowned themselves, and the demons were no more. Then Jesus got back into the boat to go back to the shore where all the people stood. And I can imagine, you've done all this work and you got in your boat, you go over there, you can't, even on the other side, there's work to be done. You get back in your boat, you're going to go back and talk to these people some more, and there's just a throng of people. So many that you can't see who's with who or who's doing what, but you know they're there for you. And down front comes Jairus, a synagogue leader, a man of prestige. He could have sent out the word that he needed healing powers or medicines or doctors. He could have asked for anyone to come. And because of his leadership role within the synagogue, people would have probably come to help his daughter. But he knew the healing was going to come from Jesus. He had gone to Jesus seeking that healing. So when Jairus came forward out of the crowd and Jesus stepped out of the boat and they met there on the beach, can you just see a father begging this Messiah that he's heard about for the life of his child? As a mother, I'm pretty sure if my child was dying and I knew there was somebody who could save them, they probably wouldn't even be able to understand what I was talking about, because I would be in such a trying, devastated state. Jairus got on his knees and begged Jesus, "Can you help me? Please, come put your hands on her so that she can be made well and live." And so Jesus goes along. So they're making their way through the crowd, Jairus and Jesus. Jairus probably feeling a little bit better because he knows Jesus is going to go. He's going to lay hands on that little girl and she's going to wake up. And as he's walking, the woman comes. This woman of Bible times who had been bleeding for 12 years. Now, for those of you who've never heard my story, who do not know how old I really am, I always get a kick out of the kids at school because they guess my age at like 25, and I'm thinking, ooh, I'd love to be 25 again. I spent 12 years trying to get pregnant, trying to have a child, trying to conceive a child. So the 12 years that this woman spent bleeding, I can sort of identify. 12 years is a very, very long time. Now that I have kids, 12 years is like, it's over. It's a blink because they keep you busy. You don't even see the clock. But when you are seeking something, when you are praying for something, when you are begging God for something, 12 years of 365 days is this long, long, long time. Now, I lived in the 21st century going through my issues. This woman lived back in Bible times. And in Bible times, when a woman was bleeding, you couldn't talk to her. You couldn't touch her. She couldn't be near her family. So every day, she's basically an outcast. She can't go to church and worship God. She is bleeding. She can't go beg somebody to help her. She is bleeding. She is at the mercy of anyone who could help her. And she gave her money to doctors. All of her money. They said she spent everything she had to get healed. And not only did the doctors not heal her, they made it worse. When I think of this woman, I think how devastated she must have been. How ashamed she must have felt. How outcast. When I think of how I felt not being able to have a child, watching people that were younger than me having babies whenever they wanted to, and my own sisters giving my parents their first grandchildren, their first grandson, their first granddaughter, every time it hurt even worse. But like her, I had faith that I would be healed. I had faith that what these doctors were telling me, it might be true. It might be very, very literal. I may never physically have kids. But I believe that God had a plan for me. And I believe that if I did have kids, there would be no question where they came from. And so the woman got up her courage. She was brave. She was brave to go out in public in the daytime as a female, to go out into a crowd of people as a bleeding female, and to approach the one who was the Messiah. I don't know if I could even approach Jesus right now the way I am. I think I might literally bow down on the floor and not lift my head up. That's so amazing to think that somebody could go to Jesus in the flesh. She was brave and she was determined. She didn't let a crowd of people stand in her way. She didn't let the fact that she shouldn't have been out there doing what she was doing stand in her way. And she didn't let the fact that what would happen if Jesus actually touched her, turned around and said, "You're unclean. You've defiled everybody in this crowd." Apparently, she didn't think about that. She just wanted to be well. She just wanted to be healed. All she wanted was to touch the hem of his robe, the fringe of his cloak. She didn't want to walk up and hug him. She didn't want to shake his hand. She didn't want to speak to him. She just wanted to come behind him and touch the very bottom of his robe. And when she touched it, she was healed. She was so healed, all the bleeding stopped, and she felt it inside of her. She felt the healing. However, when that happened, Jesus knew right away some power had gone out of him. And he knew that this woman had touched him, even though he didn't see her touch him. Jesus knew that she was going to come there. Jesus knew that she was going to need healing. Now, poor Jairus is standing here, probably tapping his feet, going, come on, she's on the deathbed, we got to get going. And here is this woman who has touched him, and Jesus said, "Who touched me?" And the disciples, of course, they're Jesus' good friends. They're not going to sugar wash anything. They say, "Who do you think touched you? 8,000 people are standing here. Everybody has touched you. The power went out of you. Let's move on. You got a dying girl over here to go lay hands on." But Jesus did not go on. He stopped. This woman interrupted him. How many times a day are you interrupted? I don't know about you, but as a mom to a 6 and a 4-year-old, I don't get a complete thought. I go somewhere and I'm thinking, why am I here? What supplies did I leave behind? Because every 2 foot somebody is talking to me. Even if they're not with me. I go into a store, I've got my grocery list, I'm ready to go, and guess who I see? Somebody from church. We're going to talk about the lock-in. We're going to talk about some miraculous thing that happened in their life. They need prayer. When are we going to pray? Let's don't wait till next week when we can actually have time to get together. Let's pray now. Those are the interruptions that happen in our lives that are sort of what I call divine interruptions. You don't go somewhere and accidentally run into somebody who needs prayer. You don't see someone who's accidentally been on your heart to ask to help with the youth program. It's not like that. God puts those people there. God already knew that woman was going to be in that crowd at that moment. And Jesus knew. And so, he asks, who did this? He's calling her out. He is calling this woman who should never have been there. Boy, she could have been in so much trouble. He calls her up and he says, daughter. Daughter. All those people standing around and Jesus calls me daughter. I would just be like, yes, Jesus. He calls her daughter and he says, your faith has made you well. Your faith. He wanted her to know it was her faith. It wasn't the rag on the end of his garment. It wasn't her touch that went there. It was the faith. It was her reaching out, having the confidence to go to Jesus and say, I need healed, and I know he can do it, and I'm going to reach down there and just take my healing. Some people might be upset by that. Some people might say, how dare she go to the Messiah? How dare she go to Jesus and just rob her healing right from him? I don't think that's how that happened. I think he knew she was coming. And I think he needed her to take that step out of seclusion and isolation and realize he wants her. Come to me. And she did. And then we're back to Jairus. There's that daddy who loves his little girl, who really wants a healing for his little girl so badly that he braved all this, and he comes and he gets Jesus and they're on their way, and now they're stopped and it's an interruption. And is he standing there acting like my 4-year-old when I don't have dinner on in 2 seconds? Or is he patient with Jesus? Is he standing there in faith and belief that Jesus is going to get there, everything's going to be all right? We don't know. They don't really tell us how Jairus is waiting, but I could see it going many ways. As a parent, I'd probably be tapping my feet. But as they're about to take off again, the messengers come from Jairus' house. Jairus, the synagogue leader, the prestigious man who had lots of pull and authority in his community, and they tell him, there's no need to bother your teacher anymore. Your daughter's dead. Your daughter's dead. As a parent, I can't even imagine hearing those words. I do not know what I would do if someone came to me and said, your daughter's dead. For Jairus, he had Jesus right here beside him. And in an emergency situation, which we've all been in one or two, at least in our life, you look around for the people you know who can help you, who move fast. You look around for the one who knows the address to the church. She's been here a long time. The one who knows how to use the phone or get the kids out or whatever. You look around for those people and you look for help. And I could just see Jairus looking to Jesus, and Jesus says to him, don't worry. Don't worry. Just trust me. Okay, so If you've ever been to the funeral home for one reason or another, you know that once the people are in their casket, they're probably not coming out. They're probably not going to get up and walk out. I'm assuming, since Jairus was a leader, he has seen this before. So the reality that his daughter is dead and the words, "Don't be afraid, just trust me," are probably not what he wanted to hear from Jesus. Jesus told everybody that was in that crowd to stay back. He picked Peter, James, John, and Jairus. And he said, let's go. Let's go to your house right now. So the 5 of them went up, and as they crested over the hill to Jairus' house, they can hear the people. When someone died back then, word spread, all those people came to the house, and they started doing funeral things. And there was, everybody's dressed in black, they have their veils on, they're mourning, they're weeping, gnashing of teeth. It's horrible. It would be horrible to walk up to your house and hear that and know that your daughter's in there dead because it took you so long to get to Jesus, who was clear on the other side of the water. He got back, you told him what you needed, you're on your way, and then boom, interruption comes, and now your daughter's dead. So there must have been a whole mix of emotions. But Jesus took him inside the house where the people were mourning, and he said, "Why are you crying? She's not dead, she's just sleeping." And they laughed at him. I'm not sure at what period of time this happened, but the word about Sarah laughing at God must have not have got to them. Because remember when Sarah was 80 and God said, "You're going to be a mother, you're going to have a son, you're going to name him Isaac." And she laughed at him. She got a son. She named him Isaac. Jesus wasn't lying, or God wasn't lying at that time. So Jesus is not lying. But these people cannot fathom how this child that they know is dead could be sleeping. And so they laugh. Out they go. Jesus is not going to work a miracle in front of somebody who doesn't even have that mustard seed. If you have the mustard seed, you will see it. But if you laugh, you stand there and laugh, you got to go outside the tent. Then you get to come in and see what happens. And so there's Peter, John, James, Jairus, and Jairus' wife, and Jesus. And they go into the bedroom. And Jesus takes her hand. He goes in the room right by her bed, and he takes her hand. Probably like her mother does, or like her dad did. Maybe when they were waking her up each morning, they'd rub her leg and say, "Good morning." I don't know how it worked back then. I yell up the stairs, "Time to get up." But somehow he said the words to the little girl, "Little girl, get up." And she did. She got up. She was asleep. Maybe she was dead in the terms of our understanding, but in Jesus' understanding, the understanding that knows no limits, she was just asleep. And he could walk in there, put his hand on her hand, wake her up, "Honey, come on, get up." And awake she was. The scripture speaks about many things. It's been a source of comfort and inspiration to me personally. I told you about my own infertility journey of 12 years. I will tell you that as soon as I came back and started attending this church, God started calling me out to minister to families, and specifically mothers. And within a 2-week period of time, I had 2 mothers lose their children. One was sudden. There was nothing she could do. Beg God, cry out. There was, even then, God did not come and heal her child. And another whose infant baby, was on life support, who we had team warrior prayer teams going on. People all over the country were praying. And I would get on my hardwood floor in my living room every night, and I would just say, "God, this is for your glory. I know you will heal this child. I know it. I just believe. I stand on your word. I'm reading your word back to you. I'm doing what you told me to do, and I'm standing in the gap. And when they removed the life support and she did not wake up and breathe on her own, I will tell you, I was very devastated. But she wasn't healed yet. The miracles that come are not miracles unless they come from God. And it has to look pretty bleak before some people realize it's a miracle. We have a lot of confidence as long as someone's alive, right? Somebody's in the hospital, it's the best place they can be. If they're on life support, they're still living, there's still hope every day, right? But as soon as they're dead, in our interpretation of it, where does our hope go? This passage now speaks to me. There is hope, even in death. Especially for those of us who believe that Jesus is not there. He's here. He's sitting at the right hand of God. He is available to us. In our death of whatever that is, death of the potential to have a baby, death of our parents, death of a loved one, death of a child, death of a dream, whatever that death is, we have to have that hope. We have to have that faith in Jesus that he can redeem that. So for the baby who did not live, who was buried on earth, obviously, I believe she is now in heaven. The healing is coming through her, through all the people who reached out and said, we're praying for you, through everybody who took a family meal, for everybody who sees that mom and just embraces her, for anybody who sends a note and says, I don't know what it's like. I don't even know what to say, but I see you there. I see you in pain. I see you crying, and so does God. And we just want to be loving to you. So here it is. Here's our gift of love. It's a letter in the mail. It's a little, gift pack of Kleenex. So just in case you're driving down the road and you have a moment, you've got a Kleenex there. It's like the Band-Aid. If you take your Band-Aid out later today and you put it on your arm or your hand or wherever, you think about that. The Band-Aid, the touch of your hand putting it on, that's where the healing begins. The healing starts when we reach out and touch someone else. Could our touch be the balm of Gilead? Is it possible that we could be the Band-Aid? Could we hold a hand? Could we reach out and support someone else? Could we offer the gifts that we have to start the healing process? Can we offer our faith and say, I don't know where you are, but I'm praying for you every day? I believe so. I believe that if we move in faith with the love of Jesus and we act in discipleship, we can touch others and the healing can begin. So just remember, you have your Band-Aid. If you don't want to put it on yourself, you want to put it on somebody else. I'm sure my children's Band-Aids will end up on a countertop or the car window or something, but when I see the Band-Aid for the next week, I'll be thinking about who needs that touch? Who needs someone to come alongside them and say, don't be afraid. I'm right here.